Waverly Knobs Entertainment presents the Branch Out Podcast with your hosts Evan Charles Anderson and Tatiana Ivan. We discuss all the exciting facets of digital media and marketing for businesses and professionals. Our goal is to empower you so you can increase your knowledge, engagement, and brand identity. Let's get ready to branch out. That's right. Thank you for joining us today for episode 38 of Branch Out, the digital media and marketing podcast with Tatiana Ivan and Evan Charles Anderson. Now, today we have a special guest joining us today. We have Bill Neidlinger. And of course, I almost butchered that name. I was telling him before the interview, I said, you know what? I have it in my head. I heard it. That's great. But I swear to God, as soon as I say it, I'm going to be like, nope, that doesn't sound right. But I think I got it right. Did I get it right on that one?
You got it right. I've heard all sorts of versions, needle fingers, everything.
Is that like the prequel to Edward Scissorhands?
Oh, definitely.
Needle fingers?
Before it really grew out to scissors. Just needles, yes.
You got to start somewhere, so needle fingers.
It's great.
And now you have a very, very diverse background, which we're going to dive into, but some of the things just to kind of run off the list would be digital and content marketing consultant for BVX Media. We have senior video producer and editor, also for BVX Media, digital marketing manager for Zemcar, and as your alter ego with Bill Vox as singer and musician.
Yes. So there's not much free time, but I love free time.
So have to schedule it into your calendar.
Yeah,
between
it's
4
actually,
and 5
it's
today.
come to that. It's come to that where I'm like, okay, going to stay in bed until then. I'm going to chill out then. But it's great. I think I've always been someone just growing up who is like a yes person that, which is either a good thing or sometimes my downfall that, hey, are you interested? Would you like to get involved in? Yeah, sure, I'd love to. That sounds great. I love it. I love being, I've always enjoyed doing many different things. I always feel like there is sort of a line that connects them all in some way or another. But it's good. I'm happy to do it.
I think that's one of the biggest things, too, is to do things that you are passionate about and that do drive you every single day. And you wake up going, okay, great, I get to do this, rather than, oh, God, I have to do this.
That's true, and I think we've all been there. And actually, I was talking to my friend yesterday that about a year ago, I just left the financial industry. I worked in the financial industry in in-house agencies in various roles for a professional career for about 15, 16 years. And making the leap and trying to figure out my next steps after that was it was kind of crazy, but it ended up being awesome. And it was a very good thing. It was, you kind of get to that point in your career, and I think after 10 years experience or 7 to 10 years experience, you're at the point where you're like, well, can I do this? Probably not. Mm-hmm. And then getting to the point where you've done some managerial roles, you've done some really serious work, handled some big budgets. By then you have a good network, and you've been able to kind of, key of life, bend without breaking. Didn't fully break, and so really making that leap has been excellent. I mean, I think despite what you might read on the internets, but the economy is doing great. Boston is a great city for a lot of small businesses, and I think discuss this a little bit. And so I think this is a great time for especially marketers, people who may not be in big agencies or whatever, who are still passionate about this is the time. There's people out there that need you.
Well, and you've had a very interesting journey talking about, as you mentioned, transitioning out of financial services. But, originally, you actually have a BA from Emerson College, and you had to focus in on media, communication, and production. Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about that, about how that transition was going from something super creative to all of a sudden, and financial industry go?
Well, exactly, and I have to tell you, I worked for a creative director in the first company I worked in was State Street Global Advisors, and it was a very interesting time. I graduated 2000 from Emerson, and my focus was a bit on new media. So new media then is old media, so new media then. And it was really cool because the program I was involved with was kind of digital culture and really looked at the emerging technologies in media, and that could help us communicate better. My freshman year, we set up a server, CUC me, which no one remembers this probably but me, but it was a video conferencing, video chat, and I think it was out of, I can't remember, maybe a Columbia University. I'm probably wrong about that, but they were trying to create a virtual classroom. And so we would have class virtually sometimes. And so there was some of those things that, seeing how technology better enabled communication was really the seed that kind of the tree in which I hang out with now came from. In some ways, that technology, which really, there was so much was so siloed and isolated a while ago, from film. If you studied film, you're in film and you do film and that's it, right? You study television, you're in television, you're in television. You're writing. And now, especially had interns or worked with interns from Emerson who do everything. And it's awesome. That is kind of par for the course now, where back then I'm like that, but I've had 16 years experience doing everything, and now it's sort of par for the course. And I think back then it was kind of an odd thing to be a digital media renaissance man, or whatever the hell you'd want to call it. So that journey, when I first graduated, I thought, well, I'll go to LA with everyone else, go do film. My Jim Morrison kind of, fantasies of doing film and being in a rock band. But, I grew up but I thought I'd go out there, and so I'd, just save up money and work. But then I really spent some time thinking, like, okay, well, I studied, new media, and LA is not the place for kind of that convergence of everything. That's really for film, television. And a job was posted where this consultant was trying to staff for State Street Global Advisors. But this is 2000. The tech boom is still kind of going, and really trying to find people was tough. Everyone was jumping into all sorts of tech startups, and I interviewed for a bunch of those. And with that, I said, well, I'd kind of like to start paying off my student loans, and healthcare, things like that. And I was like, oh, maybe. And I have a deep love of traveling and exploring. And I was like, I'd love to have money on vacation and go do things and see the world. And so it just was a natural marriage. And it was very interesting joining there because it was very startup for being a financial company. Starting to go from a phase where financial companies, who are, typically very conservative, were starting to dip their toe in the internet, really looking at, what is called now digital marketing and beyond the brochure website. And so when I was first there was about 5, 6, 7 of us. I was coding. Who would be coding on a financial website? It's so siloed, and there's so many cogs for something like that, and so much security. I could never get into the HTML now and touch the code of State Street's website. That would never happen. And so it was very cool that way. It was very startup. And so it's now being involved in startup, it's familiar in that way, and it's great, that excitement of everyone wears many hats, and in kind of bootstrap in a way.
Well, it's interesting too, because I feel like the job market has also changed in a similar manner, where back then when things were siloed, people were looking for specialists. Oh, you've been doing this for 20 years. Great, you're an expert. And now I feel like people are looking for generalists. Okay, we want a digital marketer who can do graphic design, website design, social media, can do video, can talk to people, can do PR. Can you do PR? Great, that'd be fantastic. Come on in. And you're all doing it for the same salary and the same hours in the week.
Yeah. I gotta say, there's a whole nother conversation you can have, too, about the value of our work. Especially, there's agencies and there's people who are freelance or might work for themselves or incorporate themselves. And so the value of the work is still very valuable, and talent rules. But the way it is, where people are willing to pay less and then people are willing to work for less, it kind of, there's a whole, we can drink dirty martinis and have a philosophical conversation about this, but next episode, yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because whenever you came out of Emerson and was going into kind of this tech world, it was very much like the Wild West, from the way it sounds. And what's interesting about technology is as it evolves and as it adapts and changes and new things are being introduced every single time, you're seeing these kind of pockets of wilderness or Wild West-esque-ness that you experienced. And that's really exciting. I think that's why it's so important too to have these kind of general positions, because you're not sure where some of this technology can go or what you can do with it. And so it's good just to have all these different hats that you can throw on and go, okay, great, we can get this up and running. Let's test the waters. Let's see where we can go with it.
That's a really good point. That sort of Wild West and coming from that time point, I'm comfortable in that, which is great, being comfort and discomfort, I guess, and I think that's a good thing to be, because I think if you seek out comfort, I mean, we all do in some ways, but if you want to live in comfort, for especially being in the digital marketing world, you should probably find something else to do in a couple of years. It's because you have to be hungry. You have to be willing to learn. You have to always be a student. You have to, we have to not always look over each other's shoulder to see what we're doing, but we have to, though, also. You don't want to do that and be influenced and help perpetuate that sea of sameness. You want to also then try to ideate and think up, well, how else can I do this? It's typically done this way here. Who cares? This is a different world. We can do anything,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as you mentioned too, you started off with trying to figure out how to implement this, video live streaming and everything, especially for meetings and whatnot and education. And now we have it so readily available in our hands, in our smartphones. You can do YouTube live stream, Facebook Live, Twitter now too, and through Periscope, and it used to be through Meerkat before they switched platforms. But there's so many options out there, which is really exciting. But you have to figure out, okay, well, how can we adapt this, and how can we use this or implement it as a business or as an individual if you're trying to get yourself out there, whether service, product, or what have you.
I think that's a good point. It's about being willing to take those chances to be an early adopter. I think if marketing in some ways is trying to tell your story and connect to your audience or your client, it's being willing to say, all right, well, let's look at, Snapchat. There's more users joining Snapchat, I think, than most social media platforms right now. Kids are going on that. Kids, old man. Younger people are going on to that more than Facebook to get their news. And so you see how Snapchat has seen that. And then so they have the news channels. And then other brands are saying, well, how do we get there? Because that's where the eyes are. This is kind of the thing. And I met, and I won't say who, but there's a retail client I did just a little stuff for. And one of the things we were talking about, I said, well, take a look at, you're a lifestyle brand, right? You're selling a lifestyle, this product that you have, products you have, you're selling a lifestyle of how people live. And I said, and your target audience are people who are on Snapchat, these young professionals who are just working and have some money to sort of live and create that lifestyle that you sell. That's where you should be. You should have a channel. You should create some content around your products. And because they were already starting to do that, but they didn't have, they were wrestling with, well, how do I reach them? It's like YouTube, okay, fine, because that's searchable, shareable. Facebook, great. And then you can have partnerships with people on networks who might host or take you through the product. But, get out there. Be comfortable with exploring those emerging technologies. It's funny, oh man. I mean, I remember meeting with some of the business leads of Real Video, Real Player, if anyone remembers that back then, which was how you stream video. And you had to go through them, and it wasn't very secure. And then all this technology, as you see, it's gotten more and more that I fully embrace it. And, I'll go on Facebook Live, and I'll set up a Facebook Live as my band plays, kind of thing. And that's something that haven't really sat back and said, wow, that's amazing. But
we're in the future.
It's the future. I'm still waiting for hoverboards and flying cars, but we are pretty much in the future. And I'm not really amazed, but I'm more like, of course that's there. Of course. You see the history and how, we are all standing on the shoulders of giants, in a way, be it technology, be it anyone who's tried to do something before us. And so seeing these trends, it's being comfortable with that, embracing it and saying, yeah, let's do this. It's natural.
there are a lot of people out there that still don't have that curiosity or are very afraid of video and incorporating it. Because if we really look at the whole and go and think about all the companies that exist, whether small or large, and we really look at all the videos coming out, it's probably like a quarter of all those businesses, if that. So there's a lot of people who are being held back on this idea of implementing video. Now, what are your thoughts on what's keeping them back? Like, what do you think is restricting them from just jumping in saying, let's do this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And one of the things that as I've met with people, be it a startup or financial company or another company, about, I have a strong background really growing up managing a video team and understanding video communication and having studios and stuff. Video is so important. It's a great way for a small brand to elevate their brand. It's really, when you crunch the numbers, I would meet with someone and say, well, this is what it costs to do this. And I'm like, oh gosh, wow. That people aren't quite comfortable in some ways, and I think this is why it's not implemented more, to do what it costs to get some video productions. Really, it's very affordable. There was, this is very funny, I was approached by a PR company, say about a little under a year ago, about doing a YouTube series for a meat distributor. And as a vegetarian turned pescatarian, it was an interesting sort of approach. I was like, oh gosh, they're gonna invite me over and to eat a steak. I know. And I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm feeling so peckish. No, thank you. So they wanted to build their brand. They got to this point where they're successful and they want to take it to the next level. I kind of said, well, here's a couple of tiers of how we can approach this. You can do a guerrilla style where it's very low budget, but still we need to, throw money into this and time. There's money and time. And then here's how to really build your brand. This is something that's going to look amazing. This is something that you could probably take to a local news or something like that. This is what I suggested. Don't be about the actual product you're selling. Be about who's using it and highlight chefs, restaurants, and just be that byline, sponsored by, whatever. And they were kind of back and forth. And I gave them a very good price. And they're like, no, they're just not comfortable with that. And I'm like, okay, good luck then. It's like, I'm sorry, to that earlier point is our services equal our time, which also equal our rent, which equal healthcare and all this other stuff that we have to pay for. But also you're going to get this product because I have this experience and I work with these amazing people, and you're going to get something that your brand deserves, is going to elevate you and take you to that next level you want to. But if you're not comfortable with paying that, well, then you're going to miss out. It's really an important thing. Everything, even startups, there are a lot of startups in Boston, and that's one of the most exciting things I think here right now. It's really become the hub on the East Coast for, even people from overseas come here for incubators and whatever, and they're kind of finding their way. They have this great idea and they're not too sure how to communicate it. So video is one of those things that as they connect to investors, people who are willing to put seed money, if they have a video, that it just elevates the brand immediately. And so if they're willing to be comfortable to pay that or find the money for that, they're going to stand out in that sea of sameness. And I think it's really important. It's one of those things that our time is becoming shorter and shorter of what we can spend listening to people, especially, how many times do you just feel like, no, I'm being sold to, leave me alone, I'm being sold to. This is why content marketing is huge, because you provide content, you sell your brand, you show your expertise, and to try to get people's attention is something, especially whatever industry you're in the financial industry, you have clients who you want to connect to, provide a benefit of your leadership, your direction of, hey, how can I make your financial instruments work for you? How can I give you a better lifestyle through my services and providing you whatever, mutual funds and stuff like that. So how do you connect to those people who are so busy? These are, especially in my past, these are very busy millionaires or whatever who they're trying to connect to. They have no time for you. So what can you do? You can send them a 3-minute video on some financial trend. from your thought leader saying, hey, this is where we see, volatility in the market in the next quarter. And that's something that they care about because they're thinking of their investments. And that's how you start to have a better business relationship. That's how you get your next sale. If you just think that, I'll send them an email, I'll do this, I'll cold call them, whatever, that might work. But something like video, because we consume with our technology device, I'm holding my iPhone here, and this is like one of the most powerful marketing tools there is. This is like, if you can get there, if you can get into someone's iPhone, if you can get, connected to them via that, you got them.
And to speak to your point about the financial industry using videos, for example, I actually saw something, it was about almost, I think, 10 years ago, and I thought it was very clever. It was just a thing that, like a commercial that came up on, online or somewhere. I was clicking around and this video started playing, and it was on like a financial investment, wealth management firm. And I was looking at it, and it's showing this guy, and he's getting ready to go on a boat, and they're showing him tying the ropes, and he's talking something in the background. I'm not even really listening to what he's saying.
Oh, yeah.
But, he's taking his time, and then he's steering the boat, and you're out there. And at the very end, they show him in a suit, and he's in his office, and he's talking to a client, and he says, I steer my ship correctly, or, something like that. He's like, I can do the same for your investments. And I was just blown away. I'm like, oh man, yeah, I want to hire this guy. This is amazing. I don't even know what he was saying throughout the whole video, but you sold me. I'm done. Take my money.
Right. I think one of the biggest things, be it music, be it products, be it financial instruments, all that stuff, the most effective marketing we always see is, when you're selling a lifestyle. And being comfortable with saying, understanding who your clients are, and saying, what is their aspirational lifestyle? How are we going to make their life better? Or what is something that we can say, hey, we're a part of that. People might say Apple is a brilliant marketing company that also makes good products. Yeah.
Bonus.
Right? And it's just like, oh, great, good, the iPhone's awesome. But that is one of those things that you look at and sort of, I think people have glommed onto that a lot, but I think a lot of people still don't understand that. You think everyone really understands and gets these things, but there's always education. So if I meet with someone, there's first kind of a little bit of an educate. One, it's listening. What do you need? What where are you? And then it's saying, well, let's think about, I'm not going to oversell something to you. I've had a client come to me, well, we want to do video. And it's like, wow, that's great. That's cool. I'd love to do some video for you. And I'm like, well, where are you? Where is this going to be? You want to develop some content? Great. Let's, whatever it is, video or not. Well, where is it going to live? How are you going to connect it to your clients? Oh, your website is from 1986, and
you built it on Angel Fire or GeoCities. That's great.
Right?
It has frames.
And so it's like, well, I'd love to, but let me, I'm a bit holistic. And how does it fit into your, where you are and what you're doing? And that's just video, but that's all content. It's the kind of thing is like, well, let's take a look at your website. Well, your website sure as hell is confusing. How will people get any content or get any value from this? What are you doing on your social channels? Have you engaged everyone? Are you able to? Are you at that phase? We all want to make money and sell our product, but I'm not going to sell something to someone they don't need. And so especially with video, it's okay. Well, let me tell you where I think you can take advantage of video, and this is, I think you need to do this. And then when you're ready for video, if you want to come talk to me about this, or if you want to get going on your website, I have some people we can work with and really do something great. So,
yeah, and to two of your points, actually, I often compare video to a car. So it's an investment that some people can't afford, but it can elevate your life.
Definitely.
But if you are in a crowded urban city and you don't have where to park your car and you have to pay extra for, where to park it, you have to now have extra insurance, but you can just walk to work. You don't need the car.
No, you need a Vespa.
So that's definitely, and I think, listening is definitely key. I think a lot of people, especially in the kind of freelancer entrepreneur circle, sometimes forget that, just because somebody wants something doesn't mean that it's right for them, and you have to really listen and tailor your services to them, because that'll also bring them back for the future, and it's not just a one-off project that you're working on also.
Yeah.
You know, you also mentioned too kind of the issue of people not realizing the value of video. And it's interesting because I feel like video, at least how we view it to many people, it is an investment. And it is something like where, you know, back in the day, your clothes, you would take them to a tailor and you get them refitted or whatever else. But now...
Get your boots resoled, all that kind of fun stuff.
Exactly, yeah. You'd have people to fix things up, but you kept with the same foundation or the same structure of this because you knew it would last you for a long time. But now we're in the day and age where it's like, oh, you got a ripped button on a shirt? Okay, just go buy a new shirt. Go down to the mall and go to Forever 21 or wherever else, and you can find something cheap. And I think it's jarring for some people to try to then put this old mentality of this is an investment and this will last you a long time, and you can repurpose it and reuse it in so many different functionalities.
The disposable, you know, it's like the disposable world we live in, you know, we think. And I think, and, you know, especially when, you know, if I talk to people who are clients who, you know, they have limited resources, they have limited time and limited staff. So you can create, let's say, XYZ content one. Well, that's great. Use that, because a lot of people will create content but then not use it properly. Let's say you have a client who, you know, has a service or has, you know, their value add. They have like a white paper or a case study. Brilliant. That is so much content right there. You could basically take that, mine it, create their whole communication platform for the next quarter or two around that. You could do small little video snippets. You could do a video abstract from maybe the head of the company or whoever wrote that, like bringing out one point. There's things you can have them tweet sections. You can create like those, I love those Twitter graphics that are, you know, longer quotes. It's a way to sneak in longer, and then you have like a little supporting tweet in it. There's so much you can do. One piece of content, you can give it so much legs. For a company with limited money and resources, mine that one piece, you know, create video, and if you do an advert or some sort of anthem video, that's going to last a couple of years. If it's your values, if it's that lifestyle you're selling, throw thousands of dollars in there. And you don't have to go necessarily through an agency. You can save yourself money.
Well, and as viral as videos can become too, you could gain so much more traction and easily get your money back and then some, because as soon as you put that video out on Facebook or on Instagram or what have you, now all of a sudden you got people regranting it, you got people retweeting it and sharing it out there, and now your network just grew exponentially.
Yeah.
And you're hitting so many new people now, and so many eyes are onto you and your content, and at least, if anything, know your name, which is huge.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of those things where it really is worth the investment. So, for example, working with Zemcar, which is a brilliant startup, they took a look at the rideshare market, like an Uber, Lyft, and they saw that, you know, even Uber is technically not legal to use under 18. If you're under 18, technically, and I don't know if this is, you know, these are views of myself, not Zemcar, but I don't know if Uber does that as a way to kind of, you know, if you're under 18, you shouldn't be with us. For safety and probably insurance reasons, they're probably not insured to do that. So the head of Zemcar, this brilliant man, Bilal, he led the Internet of Things at Verizon, where, you know, he really helped solve the problem of connectivity of things, everything from soda machines to cars. And he, as a parent and with a family, and understands that lives are crazy, trying to get your kids to 8 million things is so tough. And so he really saw the need of this before anyone really even said, well, you know, the whole disruptive innovation thing, right? You come out with something that's lesser, a product, cheaper, or whatever. Uber, bam, did it. Solved the problem with the taxi industry. That you'd call 800 times just to get one to show up, hopefully within an hour. You already missed your movie, so it doesn't matter, you know. And taking advantage of technology, Uber was able to, you know, use your geolocation and, you know, digital payments and stuff. So with Zemcar, he took a look at it. How can we make things safer? You hear in the news all the time what goes on, especially locally. People get in the wrong car, people get in cars with weird people. So he used not only technology, but then personnel. So that's a lifestyle. Zemcar is a lifestyle. And that's one of the things. And we're working on, as we're getting situated and we're rolling out in Boston, it's getting that base level of the marketing materials. And it's a great brand, a lover of good design. The design is great. The app is fantastic. Everything works really well. And so now it's for us is to I think we're moving into the portion of selling the lifestyle. So it's looking at, we're starting to in pre-production of a video that really sells that. And I think that's something that when we have it, we're going to put the money into it. And that's something that we can build our brand with and repurpose that stuff for, as long as until our brand changes or something changes. I think that's something that's really going to give you not only the warm fuzzies, build a case for, but then elevate our brand and say, oh, these guys are real players. Look at this. This is fabulous what they're doing, and get people to understand the product. Here's the problem. Here's the solution. There it is.
I think Lyft was trying to do something a little bit like that. When they were competing with Uber, because you go to their app and the first thing you see is just a smiling young women and men just getting into cars and having fun.
Well. It's kind of something where with that you don't want to always be looking over your competitor's shoulder, but you take a look at what they do and how they try to connect. In some ways, we are similar, but we're very different. Because we're family focused. We want to give rides to kids. Uber has this very cool, cold, living in the city alone, which is perfect for me. It's like, yes, that's me, It's like I have an Edward Hopper painting on the wall showing, what modern life is all about. And I'll read some Rilke and listen to Joy Division and Uber. And then Lyft is like that goofy friend of yours who's like, yeah, man, I'm going there too. Come on in. Yeah, awesome. Who's gonna be there? Cool. And then so they've definitely found they do the same thing but a different niche.
It's kind of like Apple in Windows. Like if you look at their stores, one is very playful, the other one is very just kind of sterile and streamlined.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has that tone too, so absolutely I can see that.
To go into, selling a lifestyle, that's what you think about when you think of your brand. As you build your brand, what are you selling there? Everything from what are the codes of the colors you use to, how do you talk about yourself? What is your tone on your social media? What are your posts on Facebook? What are, how do you interact with people? How do you talk about yourselves, being a member of that? And those are things that people who don't do marketing don't think anyone thinks about these things. They just naturally do it. You want them to do that. They're like, oh, that's just them. That's who they are. It's like, no, people actually think about these things. Other than probably, cat videos, viral videos, and, sometimes come from millions of dollars investment. When you say like, oh, I want, I've had clients come to me and be like, I want to do a viral video. I'm like, great. Is this with kitty cats? If you have kitty cats, this could go very viral, very quick. Otherwise, we have to really think about this and make it, it's that whole smoke and mirrors thing. You have to make it look like you didn't think about it or that you're very clever. You have the Dollar Shave Club is, a brilliant example of, creating something where it's like just being brazen about it because what do you have to lose? And you're going after the market of probably young bros who are, in college or older who are like, oh man, $14 for one razor is expensive. What do I care? My financial obligations are elsewhere. I don't care if it's disposable or what. Like Dollar Shave Club, great. It's so those things, the brand, the image, it hits everything.
It's interesting because I work with a lot of actors and I tell them you got to start treating yourself like a business.
Yeah.
But I think also that businesses have to start treating themselves like actors. And what I mean by this is we see actors play a specific character on television and in commercials and everything else. And so when we go to say meet them in person, that's what our expectation is this is you. And there's been so many stories of people going, oh yeah, they're going to be so nice to meet with and so talkative. And this person all of a sudden is this complete jerk, just absolute jerk. And then they're going, oh my God, can you believe that? And this and this and this, and they said this, and they wouldn't even give us the time of day. And now all of a sudden that person's branding is ruined because the expectation was up here, and now all of a sudden it just dived down. It just dips so low. And I think it's the same thing with businesses. And something you got to think about is that you have to put yourself out there as this kind of star persona, but then you have to hold on to it and keep it consistent. Whether, like you said, whether it's through a tweet or a post or on your website or in a video, you've got to be consistent.
I agree. This is like, get out the scotch. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about branding. Let's talk about brands for a second. Your brand is not just, your adverts, your social media, stuff like that. It's also who you are talking to those people. It's something that I learned and I've always implemented. And it's funny, I've been in bands, been frontman for bands for 15 years. My current band, we did a single with Converse Rubber Tracks, which was really awesome. It's a great tune. We're totally that British indie influence stuff, like a New Order meets Verve, Stone Roses, and then a little bit of, they hate it, but a little U2's thrown in there because, they hate it. In fact, we had a jar that every time I play U2 riff, I had to put $1 in because that's how I taught myself guitar off of, kind of like a Johnny Marr, The Edge, and and actually the Doors and then some folky stuff. But so I love Edge's riffs. They're just like, it's like just eating the most saccharine sweet deliciousness when you rip into those and you have like 3 delay pedals going. It's like, it feels so good. But what I've learned throughout the years of being in that and being in a band, and then also in doing marketing and communications for financial companies, it's much, and this is why I think, it's much closer than people think. It is marketing, it's brand building, and then also it's understanding your own personal brand, because there's the whole like, give a man a mask and he'll show you who he truly is. So there's which is kind of a brilliant, our friend Oscar Wilde said that, or something to the fact. And so if you think about marketing somewhat like that, and if you think about your personal brand somewhat like that, I mean, you have to be a steward to your company's brand, to your own brand, and to your own brand as that representative to the company. I think about it too, if you're someone who is social and you have obligations, you have to kind of be aware of those things. And so if you are a CEO of a company that's very friendly and has this great look, and then you're a complete, beep, is this HBO? And then, someone should be on you for that. If you understand that you're like, you might be a gruff person, be like, I get it, right? People don't like me. But you run a business well and all this other fun stuff. Try to have someone sort you out with that. And it's really important that, let's say you are, a CEO of a company that sells a certain product, and you're a brilliant man in that field. You should own that and be a thought leader. Build your own brand, and that can help the company's brand. And I've been in companies where they try to keep it anonymous, like we're just a company. There's no human element, and they fight with that. It was in a financial company. They didn't know if they should even market themselves. I won't mention them, but if you look at my LinkedIn, you might guess. But they were having a crisis of culture, because they have wildly successful, a lot of brilliant people in there. I enjoyed working there because so many, these guys were so brilliant and just like a cut above the rest with that. But they did nothing with it other than internal interesting discussions and of course did very well financially. But, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy needs to have his own, show or podcast or, we need to get him out there. These people are doing some fascinating research and these guys can actually communicate it, which is always another thing. And so I think always market, always sell to the audience. And you see it now that people are like, okay, I have to always sell. I have to continually be in contact, remind you who you are.
I think John Ledger does a really good job of that, because I saw pictures of him before he started working for T-Mobile. He's the CEO of T-Mobile. And he's just got, short hair, suit on, this and that. He looks and acts, I feel like, completely different now. And I can't tell if this is the real him or he's getting paid to act like that. But he keeps that persona up even just in his own personal life. So, talking about personal brands, I think he's all about T-Mobile. I mean,
I think a lot of companies, and I don't know if it was something like when Steve Jobs really, that cult of personality, that might be an extreme there, where, he really built that idea that Apple is Steve Jobs is Apple. There's no separation, which can be good and bad for a company, because people leave. People aren't on a 35-year long bus ride, in one company, and that doesn't happen anymore. You're lucky to get, Ernest Hemingway said life is a series of 7-year bus rides. And so if you can be anywhere for 7 years, I mean, that's great experience. But and when you hit that 7th year, it's probably ready to get on a different bus, go somewhere else.
Is that because of our cells? Isn't it something about our cells every 7 years?
Oh, that's a good point.
Turn over.
No, I think I've heard that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I guess that would make sense.
We're a whole different person in 7 years, so it makes sense to be somewhere else. Yeah.
Where science and art meet. Branch Out, the Digital Media Marketing Podcast. We'll be talking to you in 7 years from now, and we'll see how the conversation changes.
Hopefully you'll look just as young.
They'll never know because they can't see us.
Exactly. So we will.
No wrinkles whatsoever. We've talked about basically the business and how to incorporate the creative. And we also went through your journey of going from the creative and trying to incorporate the business aspect.
Yeah.
So, we're down to our wow segment, which is our words of wisdom.
Sure.
And I'm curious, for those graduating with a creative degree like yourself, whether Emerson or Northeastern or anywhere for that matter, and they're looking to go into marketing, what is your advice to them on how they can implement their current knowledge, what they've learned and gathered from 4, 5, 6, however many years of schooling, into them going into marketing and just really hit the ground running?
Yeah, and I have such a weird journey, as I said, and I think we've talked about a lot of things with that. I think being comfortable with both the business and the creative side is important. That's tough. I was an Emersonian, though I was very balanced. I've always been, a nerd for like science and history, and then so there was a bit of the business organizational side too. But being in the financial industry for so long, it taught me how to one of the good things is it taught me how to be professional, how to talk to C-suite people like these CEOs or whatever, and I just make them comfortable, talk to them, find out what they want to talk about, how to communicate better. And then it also taught me to be more structured. I think creativity is amazing, and I think marketing and being creative in marketing is exciting. Having a budget to do that is even better, right? It's like you want to be creative, but is there money to do it? Being comfortable with brand guidelines, right? Like how, or company budget, or company brand itself. What is the vision? What are they comfortable with? And then, you might have a foot to bounce in between, but you can run very fast in between that, those guidelines and do something interesting. And so I think a lot of times, there might be a sense of someone who's creative saying, oh, but I gotta, be me and do my own thing and express and whatever. Sometimes it's easier getting your borders written for you. It's something like, even in music, it's like, let's do a country song. All right, I gotta do a country song. Bam, I'll nail it. It's like if I go to a friend's house and they have a guitar in the corner, oh, play a song. And I'm like, let's wait till, I don't know, what do you want to hear? It's like, Beatles, U2, do you want to hear do you want me to play some punk? Like what? So, and I think being comfortable with taking someone else's vision, adding your own filter, because you're a problem solver. You're someone who's not just solving problems, but hopefully being creative as you do it, and always taking ideas from elsewhere and saying, okay, well, this is where I have to run. This is what we could do. How's that? And I think being able to be comfortable with trying to get someone else's creative vision a reality is important. And then also communicating.
All right. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
We
you
had a
so
lot of fun
much.
talking to you.
Thank you so much for enduring my pedantic rants.
And to our listeners, thank you for listening to episode 38 of Branch Out. If you found us on iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, wherever you found us, subscribe, like us, leave us your comments, let us know what you want to hear, and we may talk about it. This is Tatiana Ivan with Evan Charles Anderson. We'll see you next week.